Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. I'm Sean Storer, Solutions Marketer here at Slack, and we've got a great webinar planned for you, where we'll cover the Digital HQ, what Digital HQ means for IT, and most importantly, how enabling a Digital HQ can unlock value across the entire organization. And the best part of this webinar is you won't have to listen to me talk at you for the whole time. We've got a great panel of speakers for you today from a number of organizations. They'll introduce themselves in more detail later, but please join me in welcoming Shankar Padmanabhan from Marvell Semiconductors, Jason Dirk from Slalom, and Josh Senek from Salesforce. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items. We want to keep this fairly interactive, so you'll see a Q&A pod on your screen, and feel free to enter questions in there anytime, and we'll do our best to answer them either as they come in or in the Q&A section at the end. We also have a few resources available for you to download where you can learn a little bit more about Slack from the opinions and voices of our customers and third-party analysts. So please feel free to download those, do a little bit more learning, and spread them far and wide across the organization. Additionally, we've decided not to make you memorize the webinar today, so we will be sending it out to you in an email after the recording. And again, you can look back on that and laugh at all the fun that we had, or use that to share it across your organization and show some more teams how Slack can really unlock some value for them, no matter what they're doing. And also, please remember that all the widgets that you see in front of you on this webinar screen are customizable, so you can move them around for a more comfortable viewing experience. So now a little bit more detail on what we'll be covering today. We're going to start with an overview of the Digital HQ. And since that's probably a new term for a lot of people, we'll go over some history, some key research findings, and of course, what this all means for IT. Then we'll go over a few key Slack features that help you unlock a lot of value and increase productivity. And next, we'll hear real-world examples from our panel on a number of exciting topics and really move from theory into practice on how you can get value out of Slack day to day. Finally, the floor is yours for the questions that may arise throughout the panel that we'll do our best to answer. And if not, we will make sure to take down your name and get back to you. But before we jump into the content, I want to start with an anecdote from Slack's CEO, Stuart Butterfield, because I feel like it really illustrates the transformation that's taken place in the last 2 years and really highlights the importance of the digital tools that we use every day and the teams that build and maintain them. So in a LinkedIn post, he wrote, "Here's a thought experiment. Imagine a different world where, instead of losing access to our offices in March of 2020, we instead lost access to our software. In this world, we could continue the commutes and business travel. We could still sit together in conference rooms and have working lunches. However, we couldn't use digital technology to get our work done. Our companies would disintegrate almost immediately. We'd all just go out of business." So moving from that, alternate reality back to our own, I think it's important, if we're going to understand where we are today, just to go into a little bit more detail on how we got here and as it relates to collaboration and working styles. So we're going to rewind all the way back to the 60s, where we got our first cubicles, and suddenly there were silos and walls and barriers to collaboration being put up all over the office. And then fast forward to the 90s, and we do a complete 180. We flip that entirely on its head. Everything is about hot desks and open floor plans. And suddenly, it's great if you need to collaborate, but now we're terrorizing introverts everywhere. And if you need to get some heads down work done, you're probably throwing on your noise canceling headphones or scrambling for a quiet corner of the office. And then as that's happening, the internet starts to gain in popularity. both in the home and in the office. And this digital world starts to really supplement our physical work experience. Then in the 2000s, big companies, mostly tech companies, they decide that office buildings aren't enough. They're going to go out and build enormous campuses with multiple buildings where you can eat dinner, do your laundry, bring your family, and really never have to leave. And we've really been obsessed with this idea of location as it relates to work for a long time. Then the pandemic comes in and breaks everything. Physical space is broken because we can't access it. And we all quickly transition to some form of remote work. What we've done is we've completely inverted this digital and physical space. And now your physical offices are only kind of a supplement to the digital tools that you're using as your main daily employee experience. And a lot of us have realized that we don't even want to be attached to a location. Maybe that location actually doesn't make sense in the context of our lives. So that brings us to an interesting paradox that we find ourselves in today. So 76% of workers want flexible remote work options, but 61% say they want in-person time with their teams. And while this is somewhat confusing, it gets even more interesting when you ask people to think about their actual day-to-day work. Because you see, 78% of remote folks feel they're doing engaged work, and 72% of people in the office feel the exact same way. So that's over 100%. There's clearly significant overlap, and some might say we're really confused and we have no idea what we want. And that may be the case, but maybe it's not really a contradiction. Maybe it's the first sign that we're starting to think about work as more than just in-person or remote and relative to where you are. Because a true digital workplace really isn't defined by where. Rather, it's defined by how people feel included in the collective mission of a company. And unfortunately, more than half of people right now don't feel that way. You see, people are taking a step back and really assessing their values and trying to understand how those values align with the company that they're working at. And since the digital experience is our main experience now, what's missing? What's driving people to, over half of them to interview and potentially not be with the same company by this time next year? What we think is missing is a digital HQ. And that's a place, not necessarily a physical place, that's connected, flexible, inclusive, and that everyone can contribute to and be a part of. Because instead of thinking of work as, your four walls, your cubicles, your conference rooms, if we do it right, if we can create a digital HQ, we can be free from the sort of labels of in-person or remote, because no matter where you are and how you're engaging, you can do so equally. And a lot of companies tried to build a digital HQ. It's been kind of thrust upon most companies over the last 2 years. And what we saw was people just translated exactly what was happening in the office to remote. Office meetings became online meetings, and they threw a hodgepodge of disconnected digital tools at their employees, hoping that would work. But apparently, 57% of employees disagree. And an alternative to this direct translation, and a better one at that, in my highly biased opinion, is to let Slack be your digital HQ. Because we've been focusing this idea of the digital HQ on 3 pillars that are valuable to every department at your company. First, we break down communication and collaboration silos across your organization using channels. Slack channels allow you to communicate and collaborate with anyone that needs to share information, regardless of where they sit in your organization or where they sit around the world. And we take it one step further with a feature that you'll hear more about called Slack Connect. And that allows you to get out of your email silos and text chains with your partners, vendors, and even customers to collaborate in a secure place in real time or asynchronously together. Second, we help you embrace flexibility. You can succeed from anywhere with tools like Slack huddles and clips, and you can choose where, how, and when to participate and contribute your best work. Next, we're bringing you the power of automation across your organization, not just the developers. In fact, our platform gives everyone a chance to automate tasks with building blocks, templates, and Workflow Builder, which again, you'll hear a little bit more about in the coming slides. And the best part is these three pillars all support and build off of one another. Everything is working as one cohesive digital HQ that's been thought out from end to end. And at this point, you're probably thinking, so what does this mean for me? What does it mean for IT teams specifically? And in short, it means a more productive, enjoyable experience across your team and all the teams you enable. Because Slack helps fight one of the growing frustrations with hybrid work. A lack of application integration is causing constant context switching, and people feel like they have to learn a new application every day just to get their jobs done. See, Slack ties all of these tools together in one common interface to streamline end-to-end business processes like onboarding new users with all the applications they'll need to get their job done on day one, or even resolving help desk tickets with little to no manual intervention. So this means you're helping your team and your employees, and also employees company-wide, complete their work, whereas point solutions will only help with one step in a process. Maybe it helps you collect information or communicate with team members or analyze data, but you don't need to do just one step. You need to do all of those steps in a cohesive business process, and that's what Slack enables. And even beyond streamlining these processes, so there's only one sort of interaction layer with multiple applications, Slack has no code and developer tools to automate repetitive tasks. And this frees up time for more strategic work, meaningful relationship building, and just a more positive overall experience. And I think I'm preaching to the converted here when I say IT has never been more visible, vital, or frankly stretched thin than they are right now. And Slack allows you to do more with less resources and improves productivity and the overall employee experience across the organization. So now you're probably thinking, these all sound like great outcomes and ambitious goals, but what does Slack do? What are some actual features that I can use day to day to unlock all this value that you're talking about? And while I can't cover everything in the remaining space of this one webinar, I'm going to dive a little deeper on two features that I've mentioned, Slack Connect and Workflow Builder. So Slack Connect completely transforms the way you work alongside partners, vendors, customers, or really any third parties. By moving conversations out of just silos and email threads where if you forget someone, you have to CC them and go back through a mountain of emails and try to piece together what's going on, and moving them into that same searchable, auditable, channel-based communication style that you can use internally. So you can reach business outcomes faster and build long-term relationships that help unlock growth. And all of that while keeping your data secure with Slack's enterprise-grade security features and compliance standards and a number of security integrations. So let's take a look at how this works. First, everyone's in one place, not just internally, but externally. Again, customers, partners, vendors, and that's already a great thing because 43% of people say that working with external stakeholders and the difficulty that that presents is the biggest day-to-day headache that they face. And this convenience creates tangible value across the organization. So for IT and engineering teams, picture an incident response where one of your third-party providers is core to this incident. Say it's Cloudflare or your infrastructure provider like AWS or HubSpot that goes down. Instead of having to spin up war rooms and meeting rooms where you may not even have a record of what decisions are made, people are talking over each other. Instead, all of this happens in one channel where you can create threads to deep dive on issues, and you have this searchable, auditable log of all the decisions that are made from issue identification to resolution. And sales teams, when they work together across your organization and the customer organization and maybe the lawyers or any other third parties that have to be involved, they've seen deals close up to 4 times faster. And that's faster revenue, more money in the bank. Everyone's happy when that happens. But let's say post-sale, now you've got customers. How do they benefit? So you can use Slack Connect as a key piece of your support infrastructure, where you can provide real-time personalized support. So now instead of your customer logging a ticket and feeling like it's a very black box experience, they can post in channel and suddenly it's a team sport. It's completely transparent and personalized, and they can see all of the experts working together across your organization to solve their issue. So the speed and convenience of Slack Connect is all well and good, but as IT leaders, you're also charged with maintaining security. And that's only growing more complex in this work from anywhere, bring your own everything world. Slack Connect provides all the same enterprise-grade security features that you've grown to expect from Slack, and it's even able to be used in highly regulated industries. It can be set up to help you meet your FINRA, HIPAA, FedRAMP, and even GDPR requirements. And it's completely tailorable to meet your policies and meet your unique requirements. Speaking of unique, Slack Connect has one unique security feature that no other channel-based communication platform brings. It's compatible with enterprise key management, which means that you can bring your own encryption keys for increased visibility and control over your data. So we help fortify your security without sacrificing business agility or user experience. Next feature I've talked a little bit about, but want to go into more depth on, is Workflow Builder. So this allows people to automate routine tasks with a little bit of customization, but no code. See, workflows kick off after an event that we call a trigger. And this trigger could be anything from a new person joining a channel, reacting with an emoji, or clicking the shortcuts button. You can also set up triggers so that they are kicked off based on time of day or from events fired from another application that's connected via a webhook. And once a workflow is triggered, you get to pick from a number of different actions that happen next, whether that's sending a message, opening a form, or even capturing more information. And we've seen this used in a number of different use cases to onboard new employees, run stand-ups, or even collect customer information after a phone call. And every department at your company has these repetitive, mundane tasks, which means this tool is universally applicable, and since it's no code, it's universally usable and useful. And once you get the hang of Workflow Builder, there's even more advanced automation features that can take the hassle out of a use case that I think we're all too familiar with. And that's the IT help desk experience. So rather than just take my word on it, we're going to go into a short video that demonstrates what IT help desk can look like if you're leveraging Slack's automation capabilities.
Welcome to your new HQ, Slack. It's where IT teams come together to resolve issues faster. Traditionally, Ticketing is a burden for everyone involved. To flag an issue, employees either email a generic inbox or log into a ticketing system they rarely use. Meanwhile, IT has to monitor their ticketing tool and keep an eye on email. Multiple tickets overlap with common issues, and outages create redundant work. Slack brings your team and tech stack together, empowering employees to get faster answers and IT to get more done with fewer resources. Employees can start by searching Slack. If other colleagues have experienced the same problem, they'll find the solution without logging a ticket, saving time and effort on both sides. For more complicated issues, there's Workflow Builder. This no-code tool for automating work in Slack offers a simple way to standardize requests. Integrate additional tools and further automate processes to help your teams focus on the work that matters. For example, a custom bot that handles software provisioning is intuitive to build and easy to use. Employees get the tools they need in minutes, not hours, and IT can focus on problems that truly require a human touch. Learn more about how you can optimize your IT help desk with Slack.
So that brings us to my favorite part of this entire webinar. We're going to hear from an excellent panel, and we're going to dive right in to hear about how they're unlocking value across their organization leveraging Slack. So first, we'll begin with some introductions. And if you would, please introduce yourself, your role, and how about your favorite Slack feature? Shankar, we'll start with you.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Shankar Padmanabhan, Senior Staff Collaboration Manager at Marvell. Basically, my team manages a whole bunch of collaboration tools like Slack, Zoom, conference room, visual collaboration tool, and digital signage. One of my favorite features in Slack, I would say Huddle, the search functionality. These are these two are one of my favorite features in Slack. The search is it's an amazing feature. If you want to search something, it's easy for you to search across Slack and get the results. Back to you, Sean.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. Jason, how about you?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jay Dirk. I am a principal at Slalom in their Slack focus, and I focus on app development there. Before then, I was at Viacom CBS, where I was in the IT organization, focusing on internal applications. And I'm going to go with something simple today. I'm going to go with pinning a conversation or a post to a conversation to a channel. I find that it really helps me focus on what we're in that channel for, and make sure that things get done, and really just keeping my head in the game.
Excellent. Yeah, that does really help. And now, Josh, take it away.
Hi, folks. I'm Josh Senek. I'm the director of the Slack Center for Enablement at Salesforce. I joined Salesforce through the Slack acquisition, and in total, I've been at Slack and Salesforce for almost 4 years. At Slack, I led the collaboration operations team, so I have the distinction of being the group that managed Slack at Slack. So I have a lot of experience running IT services on the platform. At Salesforce, we're working with teams across the company to help them adopt Slack at scale with bots and workflows, and they're bringing their business processes into Slack. As far as my favorite Slack feature, I'm going to do a deep cut here. There's a way using emojis to, if you use emoji reactions for messages, you can actually use it to categorize your bookmarks by doing custom searches for those emoji reactions that you've applied to messages. So if you've ever been wondering, how do I find an old message by a category, that's a way you can start to categorize old messages and find them in your search history.
Wow. I never would have thought of emojis as organizational tools. That's a good tip. So I think it's fair to say in the past couple of years, things have changed. So what are some of the biggest changes or challenges that your organization has seen in the past couple of years, and what are you optimistic about? What do you see as opportunities as we shift into a more hybrid working world? Shankar, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. So during pandemic, right, our adoption of Slack went up organically, right? We didn't have to do anything. It just went up. One of the byproducts was that there was not much training, or best practices were not there. So a lot of channels were being created. So people were couldn't manage their channels, right? So what we are focusing currently is provide some sort of brown bag sessions, training on best practices, which will really help them unlock some of the potential, at the same time keep the house clean, right? So that people don't get bored with too many channels. How do I follow? So that really helps them. So that's something that we are really focusing on. Also, we are bringing in the awareness of Slack is just not for chat, right? It's a platform where you can automate. You can do a lot of shift left and other activities. We are we formed a Slack champion network, and we are planning to provide them with more advanced training and whatnot so that we can unlock the potential. One of the biggest challenges that I think in general everyone may have right now is people have started going back to the office, right? Connecting those people who are remote versus who are in the office, that's just going to be, we're going to shift into that. So what we are planning to do is have a lot of focus on, staying still, continue to use the Slack platform and not go back to how they used to operate in the past, and unlock some of those features that really help people who are remote versus people who are back in the office. So these are the things that we are working on to help increase the adoption and unlock a lot of the Slack potential.
Excellent. Yeah, I think those are very common challenges and opportunities that we're seeing a lot of. Jason, how about you? Same question. Some challenges and some opportunities as we shift into hybrid.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm going to echo a bit, but just to keep thinking Slack first when you're having any communications with folks, don't get, there's no reason to fall back into something like email for all of these things. But because really you get out of it what you put into it. The more that you're in there, you're having conversations. You mentioned huddles earlier being your favorite thing. Just having a huddle open, in a channel, maybe there's someone in it, maybe there's not, but that it keeps people around, keeps people active. And I think I think when people as they see, again, the same thing, that when they see what they can do with it, that gets them excited about it. They want to get more involved. They see a small workflow that you showed here. It's oh, that gets them thinking, what else is there? That's just scratching the surface of what's possible. So I think that people are kind of getting their head around that. And I think that seems really positive.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And now, Josh, how about you?
That's a great question. And I think the challenges and opportunities are kind of married here. One thing that was top of mind with Slack during this transition was equitability, and how the transition to first the work from home and now back into the hybrid zone, how does it affect the equitability of employees in the space? With employee surveys, we discovered that a lot of our remote employees, those were folks that weren't in the San Francisco office in our headquarters, found that working from home and working distributed actually gave them a louder voice in their conversations, because they found that it was harder to break into a conference room discussion even when they were on the Zoom screen. Moving back into this hybrid environment, I think there's some risks to losing that equitability by moving back into this zone where the in-office relationships start to sort of override the remote employees and be more, where the presence becomes more important. Where Slack fits in this, I think we're starting to nail it, is with huddles, with bringing your conversations in channels, making sure all important decisions are visible in channels and potentially even happen in channels. You can make sure that everyone has equal footing and equal ability to participate in all of these discussions and decision-making processes.
Yeah, that's the equitability. I think that's a pretty common concern amongst those who spend most of their time remote, is that FaceTime, making sure they don't get lost in the shuffle as FaceTime becomes more important or more possible. So yeah, I think that's something it's great to hear that we're really working on.
Yeah. I just want to add one more thing, right? So you got a good point out there. So one of the byproducts happened during pandemic with Slack being the adoption went up. A lot of the silos went away, right? People started communicating. Teams started getting these information in near real time, right? So I think people already see the value of using the platform, because you don't earlier we used to, sorry, I forgot to copy you in this communication. Sorry, you were not. Let me loop you back in, right? None of those things happened with Slack adoption during pandemic, and I think people see the value. So that is just going to be a lot of that helps increase the adoption or being there on the platform. People see the value there, right?
I think jumping on that point, we have a new CIO here at Salesforce, and Jason Perez has gotten up to speed very quickly because we're able to just add him into these Slack channels where all the conversations have been happening. So right to your point, Shankar, it's not as though we have to forward him into all these email chains. We can drop him directly in the channels the former CIO is making decisions in, and he has all the context for everything that's happened previously.
Yeah, that searchability and the context, it's so much more user-friendly than an email dump or any other way of trying to communicate a ton of information at once. I think the context is preserved as well. Switching gears a little bit, so a lot of us work in or directly with IT teams largely, but what percentage of your day-to-day work is focused on enabling teams outside of IT? Some of the go-to-market, sales, marketing, and what kind of value does Slack bring to them? Josh, why don't you kick this one off?
There's a lot of opportunities for teams to adopt Slack. For marketing, it's about getting your reports from the Marketing Cloud directly into Slack with some of the new integrations that are coming. For other teams, it's about, there's always some operational component, always some layer that interacts with the rest of the company. And it's how do you bring those teams into channels, and how do you publish those channels so everyone can find them? And then the second layer down for that is how do you bring your business processes in? How do you run approvals? And this is where tools like Workflow Builder really shine, because you can build some templates for these teams to take advantage of for how to run approvals, how to run notifications, how to run your business processes in Slack. And it's really, I see Slack as, I've come from the operational lens, so I'm biased towards that view. I see Slack as being the operational hub for a company where all these teams can work together, have the context, bring their conversations into the same forum with unified business processes. That's the vision for where Salesforce is going right now, where we're trying to help Salesforce bring their tools. Even with business areas like HR and recruiting, I think there's a lot of opportunity there to bring recruiting processes into Slack to speed up your times from interview to offer, and making those processes very transparent to make sure stakeholders have all the information at their fingertips for these things.
Yeah, like a candidate channel with the interview feedback all right there. I think that's something that hasn't been, I haven't seen explored, but sounds like a great use case. And now
we've done
Jason,
it at Slack, and we have some reports with how quickly, how much that's accelerated our hiring process at Slack, and we're looking at bringing those same processes into Salesforce at a much larger scale.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now, Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of uptake in HR, as you say, but I think communications, just internal, you can really get a lot out of getting out of the email blast from leadership, bringing that into Slack. You can do get a lot of more direct communication, more transparency. You can work on kind of AMA kind of situations that are a little bit easier to handle and moderate. And I think once once leadership can see like, wow, this is a really powerful tool to get involved, to get people involved. I think that, yeah, I mean, you think about Slack as conversations, but not also as that main messaging, at all levels, from top down and bottom up. Like I think that that's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Shankar, how about you?
Yeah, so I predominantly spend most of the time outside of IT, because IT, in general, right? They adopt these kind of tools faster, right? Outside of the organization is where it just becomes a little bit difficult, right? Especially when it comes to HR, engineering. Some engineering team may, right? I mean, they use the platform, but so I've spent a lot of the time outside of IT, working closely with HR to see how we can integrate with Workday, right? So, for example, submitting a PTO. Why do we need to go launch Workday multi-factor authentication? Go there, submit it, come back, right? When you have a / command that can boom, just you're done, right? So we're working with HR and other organizations to unlock some of these things, basically increase the productivity, right? Things that are very one click, 2 clicks, just implement that, right? So that just saves us a lot of time, increase the productivity. So those are the areas, quick wins, low hanging fruit. Those are the areas there where we are primarily focusing right now, because we see a lot of return from that.
Yeah, and actually, you mentioned Workday and / commands, and that brings up another great point. So a lot of people might not know that Slack has over 2,500 pre-built integrations with applications from Asana to Zoom. So what are some integrations that you've used in the past, and what kind of value do those integrations provide? Jason, why don't we start off with you?
Yeah, I mean, all the sort of big name Office suite integrations are really key for just getting work done. I've seen HR teams implement Donut really well as a way to get people talking to each other, really getting that outreach and making sure that any potential silos get broken down as fast as they try to get brought up. I'm going to plug Giphy here, obviously, but yeah. Also things more on my side for development side. You got all your GitHub and Jenkins and Jira. Just key to getting things done every day. Yeah, many of them.
Absolutely. We got to throw in some shout outs to the developers here. And I know Slack is, for some developers, it's, just as integral to their process as the IDE itself. So it's great to see that you plug that integration. And Shankar, how about you? You mentioned Workday. Any other favorites?
I would say Outlook, setting up a meeting invite, accepting, amazing, right? You can launch all those things within Slack. Zoom, everyone uses Zoom, right? So the plugin or integration with Zoom, it's so good. So the / command for Zoom, I like that. Lastly, we have Moveworks integrated with Slack at Marvel. It's an amazing tool. So it just helps automate the whole help desk process seamlessly. That's one of my favorite things at Marvel.
And Josh, I'm sure this integration catalog was no surprise to you, but what are some of your favorites to use, and what have you seen maybe the quickest uptake of at Salesforce?
That's a great question. It's hard to see directly into the Salesforce lens. I'm so biased to Slack previously. I think you have your class of Slack first applications, which for me is like Poly for easy polling. The Donut app is fantastic. We've used that for our onboarding for a while. Then there's a second class applications that integrates with your more typical SaaS systems. That would be like the Google Drive apps, the Google Calendar apps, which I basically live in. The benefit of the Google Calendar app or the Google Drive app specifically in that class of applications is it brings those comments and feedback on a SaaS system into Slack. So as someone shares a file, if someone comments on a file I've written, those comments come directly into Slack, so I don't have to check my email at all. So I miss fewer things. Then there's like a third class application that's the strong value adds. And as Shankar mentioned, for me, that's Moveworks, where you need all this other infrastructure, like you need your documentation system, you need Jira or another ticketing system for it to hook into. But Moveworks is adding a ton of value with its NLP to accelerate all your support processes. The second tool I'd included in that category is Atlassian's Help. I think it's called Assist now, but it's that tool that it doesn't just connect Slack with Jira, it brings so much more value into that connection by accelerating all the communications in Slack.
Yeah, I think the three classes, that's a really good way of looking at it, because there's a little bit more infrastructure or knowledge needed to get the value out of the different classes. But the fact that there's kind of the crawl, walk, and run versions of these integrations and applications means it's pretty easy to get started for really anyone.
Yeah,
and
I just want to add.
Please do.
So, I just want to add to what Josh said, right? You don't need to look at the emails. Like a lot of these applications, right? Office suite of applications. When somebody comments, you get this email, and again, you got to go back to email. So half of the time, you miss it or you don't respond to it, right? So integrating that with Slack, basically, if you were to put aside some time every day, like a catch-up time, right? You don't need to go anywhere else. You just go through this notification and just address those, right? So you never, unless otherwise you decide to ignore that too, then it's a problem, right? But you don't have to go back to email. I really like that feature because just like what she said, we just spend a little bit of time, go through that. It's a time saver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so a lot of what we've been talking about is how you can bring everything into Slack. You have that one portal for a lot of your communications, and it's always on, always there for you. And I think what we've seen is that can be a little bit of a double-edged sword. It can be, it's great to have all this communication in one place, but where's the line? How do we prevent, Slack overload? How do I make sure that I have a good balance of getting the information that I need, but not being constantly haunted by Slack, especially if you're working with international teams that may be sending messages or, just having different work hours. So what are some things that you've seen implemented or implemented yourselves to maintain that balance of not having notification overload and not feeling like you're constantly around the clock exposed to Slack? Jason, why don't you kick us off?
I mean, it's good to just, when you roll out Slack, I feel like companies having this is how we use Slack at this company, right? I think that's a really important conversation to have so that everyone knows. And to really punctuate that why it works is because it's asynchronous. Like maybe you can get to it right now, but maybe you can't. And so a really good way, if people are versed in this, is just adding the eye emoji to something like, hey, I see this, I'm coming back to it, just so it's not just sitting there, like I've seen it and we're good. And if you have that corporate culture that's there, that'll be enough, right? And you shouldn't, if you need to absolutely talk to someone this very second, maybe you should pick up the phone and call them. That's what a phone is for. But Slack is not exactly that. You know, it can be close to that, but it gives you that little bit of space to craft a response, right? It's somewhere between old school letter correspondence and talking to someone on the phone. You've got a little bit of time to work with there, and so I think just having that, as people understand that, is the kind of the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Shankar, I know Marvell is a large company, so how have you struck this balance?
Yeah, so a couple of things, right? I don't know whether people are aware of this delayed delivery of messages. If you look at the Slack, there's a delay. I'm not saying that my team should practice this too. Sometimes what happens is that over the weekend I try to catch up, but I don't want to send the message out to my team because I don't want my team to think that oh, he's working, I also need to now respond, right? So when I want to send something out, I just type it in and just specify and deliver it on Monday morning at 9 a.m., right? Just schedule it, send it, and you just forget it. You move on to the next one. I use that a lot, and I'm trying to, in one of a lot of our awareness sessions that are coming up, one of the topics that we're going to cover is that, because well-being is important. People they're not mindful, they just send it, but on the other side, people may jump on it, right? So that's a great feature. Number two, we all talked about integrating multiple applications, right? But you have to pick and choose what application you want to integrate, right? It's not like, if you have 100 application in a SaaS application in a company, you integrate all 100 of them. No. If you do that, then you're just that's where you get thousands of messages come in and you're just going to get overloaded and you don't know what to do, right? As an end user, you have to pick and choose, what is the what are you looking out for, right? What do you want to get notified, right? You basically specify that. The other thing that we are doing is that generally people have this using Adhere, and just annoy everyone in that channel, right? So we are bringing in that awareness of when to use that, right? Because people generally do that and then just distracts. Awareness is key. And then, some of the features that are there, those are the areas that we are focusing to bring awareness so that this kind of overload doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I know Shankar covered a number of my favorite features to balance that, but Josh, how about you? Any further features or best practices to elaborate on?
Yeah, I'm hearing two perspectives from Jason and Shankar that I see as two different sides of the same coin, or different coin, bad metaphor. But the idea here is that Jason's focusing on what I'd be calling a team agreement, which is what are the conventions that a team sets for how we're going to use Slack. And this can be a company-wide. I think there's a company-wide portion to this, but it's also as small as the team unit. What are the expectations an individual manager is setting out for availability hours? Do we use scheduled messages? How does this team use Slack together, and what are our communication expectations? On Shankar's side, I see a lot of the individual agency that the platform allows. And from my lens, that's things like, do I turn on the do not disturb? How do I set my own Slack status to indicate whether I'm ready to be communicated with? And from my preferences, I've configured my Slack desktop instance to halt all animations, and I have no announcement sounds at all, because that, for me, I find extremely distracting. So I've tried to reduce what I see as noise as much as possible in my own individual application of my Slack usage.
Yeah, that individual level flexibility is paramount. So from everything from pausing notification sounds, because I had one person actually come up to me and say, I loved your commercial, but every time it came on, it freaked me out because I thought I was getting a Slack message and I would run over to my computer. So yeah, I also removed the noise from my computer, so I'm not constantly chased around by it. And you can also change the noise to make it something that you want to hear throughout the day. But yeah, I love the team conventions and company conventions versus individual flexibility and agency. That's an important discussion and distinction, and I think it makes the Slack usage experience more pleasant for everyone. And we have time for one more. So I'm going to pose this one to Shankar first, and then feel free to chime in, everyone. What was something that you were able to do in Slack that surprised you?
So at my previous employment, so there was a team who built something using Workflow Builder. So when they go from site to site, they have to, sometimes what will happen is that there'll be unscheduled demo or whatever, right? Using the / command, they will be able to spin off a virtual machine, put in all the components that are needed while they're traveling from one site to the other site, right? No computer, nothing, on the phone, just running the / command, which triggers Python scripts, and in the back end, builds the whole infrastructure for a demo. By the time they get to the next site, the demo environment is ready, which is amazing, right? You don't need a computer, right? The Workflow Builder is so powerful that it can do a lot of stuff behind the scene. Obviously, it's all homegrown with Workflow Builder. It just amazed me how how they were able to develop that. That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Jay, how about you?
I think coming from the developer world of this, how fast you can go from the back of a napkin to something that is talking to people, as an application that they can interact with, it's phenomenal, right? If you have an idea, when you walk in the door with your coffee, you can have a prototype that's working that people are playing with, that afternoon, right? That's just crazy, and it feels, you don't have to worry about the user experience because y'all are taking care of that user experience. It's really just what is the key part of the application that you're trying to make, and when you're working with clients and partners, to see how fast that can happen, it really gives them the opportunity to really get creative. How much can we do in such a short time? And that has always been the strength of the platform, is just how fast you can move.
Yeah, that rapid prototyping motion, idea to maybe not the full-fledged, but at least that MVP, and really being able to test your ideas and iterate quickly is, I think, invaluable in this area where customer expectations are only getting higher and timelines to deliver on them are only getting shorter. So it's nice that the platform really enables that rapid prototyping. And then, Josh, I know in the 4 years you've been working hands-on on Slack, you probably haven't been surprised too many times, but I guess what is something that you've seen surprise other people pretty often?
I was racking my brains on this one as you mentioned it. There have been a couple genuinely surprising moments around, I think, with the depth of data that is in our internal Slack. Going through an acquisition over the past year has been, the things you have to understand about what is a company purchasing and all this institutional knowledge. I searched Slack to find out what was that vendor that someone just brought up, and the information's there. It's always there. I've very rarely had a search come up without a result, and I think that's partially because of how advanced Slack has always been with our own internal use. So when you truly fully adopt this and put everything in the platform, years down the road when you've had turnover and people have left, you need to understand what happened 5-6 years ago. It's there, and you can actually surface the information. That's been the most surprising thing for me.
Yeah, the searchable log of all common knowledge. It really lives up to its name. And yeah, I think just search and advanced search are probably some of the most critical skills and muscles to develop if you're going to adopt Slack, org-wide, because you're right. If it's been said, if it's been discussed, it's there. It's all a matter of finding it. And honestly, I think I have the opposite problem when I look for things sometimes. I find too much information on it, and I have to tailor my own searches to see, what do I actually need to know about this topic, because everything's there. Well, about 5 minutes left, and I just want to thank all three of you for your participation. I think the examples that you've shared and just really bringing this from theory to reality, I learned a lot, and I hope that extends to our audience as well. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. And don't go anywhere just yet, because let's say you've listened to this session, you've heard people talking about all the capabilities, the developer tools, and you're saying to yourself, man, I want to learn more. I want to get hands-on. Well, you're in luck, because Trailblazer DX is the Salesforce umbrella's largest technical conference of the year, and it's going on right now. So you can dive in and explore 200 plus technical sessions. You can do product demos, and you can just learn how to connect the entire Salesforce ecosystem, Tableau, MuleSoft, Slack, and Salesforce, and unlock all of the value that this unified platform contains. So we'll be sending you a registration link in our follow-up email, or if you simply can't wait, head over to reg.salesforce.com now, or if you're in San Francisco, sprint down to Moscone West and we'll be waiting for you. If you can't sprint over to Moscone West just yet, in addition to the resources that we had included in the webinar window for you, which again, I encourage you to download because it's a view of Slack through the eyes of some of our larger customers and through the unbiased lens of a third-party analyst. But in addition to that, please visit the Slack for IT page. We have a solutions page built out for your teams and users, and I encourage you to visit that and find even more tailored content, or check out the Slack app directory. Like I said, we have over 2,500 pre-built integrations. If you're using an application, it's probably there. If not, an integration can be built. So check that out. It's really powerful stuff. And of course, at any time, please talk to us, reach out, click on one of the Try Slack or Contact Sales buttons, and we'll be sure to get in touch with you and see how we can enable enterprise-wide value for you using Slack. And with that, thank you again for your time. I hope you enjoyed yourself, hope you learned something, and I hope this is the first step of your journey for unlocking enterprise-wide value using a digital HQ and Slack. Thank you again.